Okay, it is 4:30, and it's the Southwest Vermont Supervisory Union Policy Drafting Committee. We have a few items to cover for conversation and so forth along this line, and I'll go over this. This is a committee, so it's a little bit different than the regular board meeting in the sense that I'll cover all the things that we need to do here tonight, and if Lisa can put up the agenda on the board there, we'll cover that. What we'd like to do.
I don't have the agenda on the flash drive.
Okay,
I think it's one of your guys's. If anybody,
the agenda for tonight should be starting out with public comments. And then we should have board reorganization. We'll have a small discussion for that. We have minutes from our last meeting in February. We have two policies that we had going along through the system to come back and have a discussion on. We had a couple of comments that were sent our way for policy 4400, policy 7300. Now, what normally happens, we have a community member that may want to speak to something, and if we need to rearrange the agenda, we'll do that at this time. When we get ready to go through here, I'll ask if the agenda is okay, and if not, we'll rearrange it. The next thing is the tracking sheet, that we try to track all of the things that we do and where they are throughout the boards. And we have a section for others as to give us an opportunity to say what it is that we may want to put on for the next time coming up to this for the next meeting, and then we try to set the next date for our meeting. But before we go into that, we normally would have an introduction of the people that are around the table here, and I'll do an unusual thing of trying to make sure I talk about board reorganization structure before we go and do it, so everybody will know what it is along that line, and board members, committee members' responsibility is what I like to do. Is that okay with everybody in that manner?
Sounds good.
Okay. What we'll do first then is we'll have an introduction as who's here. So we want to go around the table. We'll start with Lisa.
Sure. Lisa Poplaski, Administrative Assistant to Donna Leak, the Assistant Superintendent.
Hi everyone, I'm Donna Lee, Assistant Superintendent.
Hi, I'm Frank Barnes, Director of Educational Technology, sitting to the right of Donna Lee, the Assistant Superintendent.
Here we go.
That's right here, Frank.
That's right.
Dave Barrow, Dean of Students at the high school.
Cindy Foster, Principal Woodford.
Angie Rowling, Board Member Pownell.
Maria Skelly, Board Member in North Bennington.
And I'm Rob Plunkett, Board Member for MAU High School.
Tony D'Onofrio, Board Member at Jasper.
Dick France, Board, Woodford.
Leon Johnson, Board, MAU.
Amy Dobson, Board MAU.
Okay. And we have, since you want to put the camera on, Sean Marie, you want to say who you are?
One citizen.
One citizen. Okay.
Sean Murray Oles.
Cover of your
All right.
book, right?
Well, thank you for coming. We have board organization, reorganization down. And the question was coming up, in our policy for this board, we speak to the fact that we want board members of directors from each of the board districts that make up this district. At one time, we tried getting at least 2 members, and we had a lot of problems with that. So we went to 1, and if 2 came, that was just fine. We didn't, because this is a working committee, and we didn't want it to be overloaded with everybody from one board. But if other board members want to attend this meeting, they are welcome to attend, other citizens to attend, and they have comments about certain things along that line. So we have a public comment section for them. We have channels to get the information from other board members or committee members from the public by having them send the information to some member that sits around the table, to the administrations, and then we can take that information and act on it, and when we're discussing the various policies. So with that, when we formed this organization, all of the districts which made up SVSU voted to become a group that will manage all of the policies for SVSU. So every district out there, Bennington, North Bennington, Pownell, Shasberry, and Woodford, and Mount Anthony, middle school and the high school, all agreed that we will have one policy committee on the SVSU to manage all of the policies for SVSU district members. And that's the agreement that we have. So what's wrong with that is that it takes a long time to get all of the policies and things squared away and through every one of the boards and back for approval. So we have a warning process that brings up what it is that we discussed here. We want to make and get it as clear as possible, and then we send it to SVSU, and then we send it to every board that makes up the SVSU district. Mount Anthony Middle School and High School will be one of the district, and have them provide comments or feed information on the subject that we're going to discuss, so that we can get it out and get it approved in the adopted stage. Now, when it goes around to the adopted stage, adoption, we do the same process, and that takes time depending on how long it takes for the information to go around to each board and what questions they have concerning it. This board also, when we do that, we have depending on the information, we have legal services look at it to determine whether we are on the straight and narrow path along that line. So the information that we take, we gather, we have policies, and I'll just say we have online, and I'll just go over where they all are. On the SVSU, we've improved to the fact that we have all of our policies electronically under the SVSU, on the SVSU website. And all of the ones that are approved can be found on the svsu.org. And then there's a nice word that says all about us. And when we go all about us, under there's policies and procedures. And when you click on that, all of the policies pop up, and you can start, as I mentioned, the first paragraph is the consolidated paragraphs that allow all of the districts to prepare policies up on the one SVSU. We have a number system, starting out with policy 1000 that we've tried to put in place that directs our efforts for how we want to manage the policies. We have policy 2000 for administration, policy 3000 where we business and non-instructional items are kept, policy 4000 which is personnel, policy 5000 is students, and that's the largest group of policies which is all about students in the school. We have a lot. And then we have policy 6000, curriculum and instructions. And then policy 7000 is the operations of the board of directors. And so I wanted to make sure that everybody know where these things are, because there will be an assignment for everybody.
There's going to be a quiz.
to go out and do something out here so that we can operate as efficiently as possible. And what that means is that once you agree and accept the assignment from your district to come here and work on the task force, there are many talents among the group. I mean, many talents. And there are different views from just about all of us. But what we ask is that there are certain things that you may be able to get a great understanding that, yes, I think I can live with that. We can wordsmith certain things to death and be here for 9 or 10 months or a year, but we can make sure that the wording is such that it does what it's intended to do, so that we won't spend a lot of time on it. But in terms of the representatives from your district, we need you to be the leader for taking the information concerning the particular policies that we discuss here back to your individual board and be able to explain to them what it is that we discussed here and why the policy is what it is. And if there are other board members at your district have questions that you actually honestly can't answer or need, or they have a point of view that's different and you want to bring that back, then you would probably be responsible, as much as possible, to help bring that information back and says, our board see this way. Now, one of the jobs is to have the boards be cognizant that, well, we got a whole lot of other board districts that make up this committee, and that everybody has to vote and agree to pass a policy a certain way. There are some policies that may not be part of this committee, and that is something that's specifically within the district, like tuition. That's setting their tuition for some reason. There may be some other things, that a couple of others out there that are not part of the committee, but directed by the individual district. But all the other policies, whether they affect elementary, middle school, or high school, we all have a stake in them all. And we want to make sure that the policies that we put in place and the procedures will be set so that if you go from one district to the next, or one school level from elementary to middle school to high school, that they will be consistent in how we manage and run the school district when it comes to those particular policies. Even though there may be something specifically for elementary in that policy, there may be something specific for middle school, and it may be something specific for high school, everyone will know that within that policy under that title, and it has gone through this board and gotten approval from everyone. So with that, I think I've covered all of the things that needs to happen in terms of making sure everybody is clear and understand what it is that we try to do in here. Barring no other things, we work on a tight schedule. And when I say 4:30, we start at 4:30, and 6 o'clock, we are out the door. And so one of the things that we try to do is, when I said get an understanding, we want the chair to recognize all the board members and their opinions and have a discussion. We don't want individual discussions or sidebar, I shouldn't say that way, side discussions going on at the time that we're having some, because we want to be clear on what it is that we are trying to achieve. We are really blessed that we're able to have electronic display and have members of the staff here that will pull up the policy and take our information and type it into place, so that when you walk out the door, pretty much it's going to be the way it is, because we've agreed on it. And barring the fact that you'll bring some back and say, well, the grammar may be this or the grammar may be that, or our board think we may do this, but if we all agree, we'll go that way with it. So this is one of the And from a board perspective, policy is the board's primary responsibility. We operate in conjunction with administrators, and that's why Donna's here, Frank is here, we have Dave and Sandy to help us with these policies, because they're going to be the ones that implement them. And we have procedures that we ask to be put in place and looked at in terms of managing the policies. Now, when you ask around the state, they said, well, don't worry about the procedure. That doesn't really work for us. We like to have, as much as possible, our procedures attached to our administrative regs attached to the policies. And when you go on, if we have them in place, they are attached, and you can see that the policy, and then you can see the administrative regs in terms of how they're being implemented. I think that's all I need to stay in that particular category. Am I clear on that? So that's a good, barring no hands or comments. At this time, I'd like to ask for someone to, in terms of board reorganization. I know we, in terms of a chair and a vice chair, along that line. So we can have someone that would like to do that. Would be just great for me.
Nominate Leon to continue as chair.
We can get a second if we.
A second.
Okay. Any other nominations? If
Tim did ask me to nominate myself. I'm not sure if he was clear on that, but I will mention that at least our chair wanted me to be somehow nominated, but I'm not nominating myself, so I'm not sure how that exactly works, but I put that out there.
all right. Hearing that and having no other nominations, we'll just have a vote, just to the consensus that all in favor of me continuing on as the chair.
Aye.
Aye. Any extensions, or waivers, none? So, okay. So I'll continue. As the chair, what I normally do is, before each one of these meetings, I meet with members of the staff to go over the agenda, to make sure that things that we've heard in the community, things that we've heard at the board, information that we've gotten from the state, and information that may fly in some other kind of way, that we compile that information and correlate what the agenda is going to have on it, and whether we can get to it and manage it along that line. So that's what I do approximately a week, a little over a week before the meeting, is do that. So at that time, everything will be set, and Lisa works on it and put it out on the website from what we all see that needs to happen, and then you got the package so that you can go out and pull it up and read it. The package is nicer to go and take the email that's sent to you under your name and click on it and pull up the information, and then you click on the down arrow for the package, and it'll all come out for you so that you can just scroll from left to right to see all the information and read it and be prepared when we come here to discuss any of those things. So that's how we get to the agenda. So with that, we will
Nominate a
Oh, I
vice
went
chair.
through
a vice chair.
I nominate Dick.
Rob Plunkett.
Second.
So, wait, second for which one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, for Dick.
Okay, a second for Dick.
Can't second
We have
two people at
a
once.
second for Rob.
Sure, I'll second for Ron.
Okay,
There we go.
it's unusual where we have more than one person for
Competition.
position. So, Are there any others? So we can do this one or two ways. We can have a show of hands, or we can have, say something, or we can just,
I'll put out my statement that I'm more than willing to do it, but seeing Dick as the vice chair for the last year, he's an institution and he knows this. So,
There's other people in here without
Sat in the
beer.
right chair.
so, this is a committee. We can have a show of hands, and we all work together and have a lot of fun. As you see a lot of laughter take place in here, this is a good place to be. So, with that, we have two names. We can, I'll start with Dick France. All in favor of Dick France being the vice chair, just raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6, and we got 6. Them in favor of Rod. Okay.
You can't vote twice.
Voted once. So we
I
have
seconded him, I gotta vote for him, right?
I don't think you did.
Thank you,
I've
Dick.
done that before.
Dick will be the vice chair, and so
Thank you, Dick. If you want me to do anything, I will do it.
yeah.
Thank you.
In
You
relation
could
to
be vice chair.
In relation to the committee.
You can always
Make my house.
decline.
Earlier, I mentioned about special talents. Bruce Lee Clark is not here. Tammy Soul is not here. But we rely on a lot of individuals. There are a lot of individuals, and I just mentioned them because they, in the legal area, they provided them Roberts in the legal area. Administrators have a lot of good knowledge in terms of how things should be crafted. I had a couple of good, sharp individuals that, I mean, North Bennington has always sent people in here that were really, I mean, fantastic with the wording of how things want to be. When we couldn't get something together, they would say, Leon, why don't you let me take it back to North Bennington and bring it back, or work with Dick France on it or something and bring it back, wordsmith the floor material in terms of a policy. So a lot of that takes place. So you may have special talent for something that just speak up and say, look, let me take a look at this. I hear what everybody's saying, and the board, we can agree to say, well, you take it, work on it for the next month and send it back to us, some fashion, and then we can go at it from that. So that's what I wanted everybody to say. You got some special talents. We'll take them and we'll use them to help make things go smoothly. But anyway, we want to make sure that we get it done within an hour and a half. With that, we'll go to the public comments. Are there any public comments? We have one person here from the public, and we've already stated the name of Sean Marie, and we got it down. I'd like to hear the comments that you have for the public.
Hi, everyone. I brought just one copy with me, but as some of you may know, I have been to the SVSU board to ask that 7300 come back for review from its 2015, 14, and 15. And Lisa, I'm assuming you take the minutes because I'm thrilled to see there's more than just a tracking sheet now, which it used to just be that's how the minutes were recorded, with just the tracking sheet. They started after the 7300.
So,
Thank you, Donna, because she's right.
Yeah.
So what I have to say is that in 7300, in your very first paragraph, which you're going to discuss in a little while, it says that the school boards and prudential committee reserves the right to eliminate public comment agenda items when a meeting posted as executive session only. The board receives blah, 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 blah. So that's one issue I have. The other issue is at the end of the policy when it talks about in a timely manner, and there has been fairly new legislation on the open meeting law in terms of what timely means. So I ask your committee to take a look. So Leon, since you are the chair again, I will give you the copy of the 3 attorneys' opinions that I have, which I did email to Rob, because Tim asked me to do so. But from the Secretary of State's office, it's a 2-page email, and typically they refer people to their private attorney, or if you're a school board member, to the School Boards Association. They speak in generalities, which is a page and a half of generalities, but the specificness is, again, generally speaking, if a board may permissibly discuss a matter in private under VSA 313 to an open meeting law, the board must move and vote to enter executive session from a meeting open to the public. So there should always be a public portion of the meeting in advance of any executive session. That is from Jenny Posler from the Secretary of State's office, and I will give you that entire email. So just to proceed at what I asked the VSBA, an attorney, and the state's, the VSBA, the Secretary of State's office, and an attorney is, the question I have is, can a local SVSU school policy trump or override state statute? Below is the section from H, VSA 312. It states, at an open meeting, the public shall be given a reasonable opportunity to express its opinion on matters considered by a public body during the meeting, as long as it is maintained order, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
What the SVSU policy says, I just read you, which basically states that they can eliminate public comment if you're going only in executive session. So that was from the Secretary of State. From Paul Gillies, who some of you may know or not know, it says that, well, you can read it. He says it's an interesting question, but that the public comment shall be subject to reasonable rules established by the chairperson, and states that he believes that that reasonably there should be a public comment period.
So, at this point, and this is what I wanted to make sure that we get, so what you.
I'm giving them all to you.
What you've asked is that under that particular policy, 7300,
Yeah.
that there is a public comment section that the wording eliminate may or may not. We need to look at that.
That would be one.
That would be one item,
And
and
the
then
other
timely
item
manner.
is a timely manner.
And we'll consider those items in that policy as a discussion and review, and make sure that we come back and do the right
Okay.
thing for those.
The other VSBA comment, which you may know, is that the law doesn't require the agenda to include public comment as is written, but they must allow it. So these are the 3
Okay.
opinions you can pass down to the chair.
Well, I thank you for all that work, Tom, and we'll take it and look at that in terms of the policy and so forth along that line.
Can I make a
And get back.
suggestion on that?
In terms of public comment, it's just that we're gathering the information from the public and what their concerns are for that. And then when we get to that policy 73,
Okay.
we'll do
Yeah,
that.
you wanna keep it in order.
The chair will have the option of saying, let's go out and study that, or let's take it and put it up here and see, can we put some changes in there based on input and information that we know from this committee, and that's what we'll take. Okay. So, since we only had one person on the comment section, Sean Marie, and that's, thank you. There are none, and we would take this information and then move right on into the next item. Minutes from February 5th is,
approve. Second.
it's been moved.
Can I ask a
approved.
question before we?
Yes,
Sorry.
it's the
I wasn't-
discussion now for the minutes, yes.
I wasn't here for this meeting, so I apologize, but I had a question from my board about the 2600, and it's not on the rest of the agenda, so I just was hoping I could kind of slip it in here, if that's okay.
Okay, I mean, we can.
Or we could do it after, that's fine.
We can do it on the others if you like. 2600.
Superintendent of schools
Yeah.
Yeah, superintendent. All right, I'll take it on the others
Okay.
because we've completed all of it. If you don't mind that.
Not at all.
Okay, all right. Okay, it's been moved and second in terms of the minutes from February 5th, and if we have have any comments, I mean, for a discussion for that, bar none, if there's a show of hands that all in favor of the minutes as written, please, or just a nod to head and so forth. All right, thank you. The first policy on the list to go through today is policy 4400, safety and security of employees. This policy had been around several times through this board in discussion, and we had information that was brought in from a member of the public in terms of the things that needed that thought it was not clear enough to be able to address certain health issues when it came to students. And so we wound up, and after we send this we had a discussion here and heard all the information, we wind up adding one word to the policy that would cover the area and gave the individuals that was asking clear direction to the building administrators when it came to health issues. So the word healthy was added, and that took care of things that came up when it came to students or employees with health issues along that line. And so that's where that policy has been going around, and it's gone through.
It's warned by everybody so far.
It's been warned by everybody, and we're ready to come back here and says, is there anything else that anybody else needed to talk about or do with this particular policy? Now, this is the policy. The information that we were getting from the public and the persons that came were information that needed to be probably in a procedural thing. What do I do? Well, part of the thing was that building persons are now making sure that they have the rights, a clear path to do what they need to do in terms of health issues. And if we need procedures, we can write some definite procedures saying to administrators, this is what you need to be trying to do and how to manage those particular things that, in terms of health issues that may pop up. And so I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, this might be a good time to actually go through what the process is that we go through in terms of the policies. So we'll review a policy and make a recommendation. Where does it go after that, and what the steps are for that, just for everyone to understand.
All right, I'll put that in there. What I mentioned earlier is that all of the makeup of this committee is all the districts out there, the elementary schools, the middle school, and the high school. And what happened, we agreed to all become one policy committee. So we hear information from the state because we have required policies. We hear information that we have managing the town and the schools and so forth, and we have those, and disciplinary items and so forth along that line on the policy 1000. And so when we take all that information, we come in here, we sit down and make up the agenda, and then we make a discussion, have a discussion in here, and this is a committee of recommendation to SVSU. So once we all agree here, we say it is now okay for the policy to go to SVSU so that the SVSU board can warn the policy. Once SVSU board warn the policy, it is then maybe at some times, it may be taking place at the same time, warning and sending to the district boards because of a time constraint. out here. If we're late in the month and something need to happen, it may go to the boards at the same time as going to SVSU. But it needed to be one by SVSU, and you'll see all that on the tracking sheet, and one by all boards. The policy is not complete until everyone has won it, and if they had some discrepancies or want to make changes, we have those, that documented information that we come back and have a discussion here with that information. Doesn't stop the process of the policy, because you can still make changes based on input out here and have it go back from this committee next and goes to SVSU for an adoption based on comments that we might have got going through the warning process. And that's what the process, the warning process is. It gives all the boards an opportunity to look at it, understand it, and then return it back to us with or without comments for modification or changes. And then we make those and we send them on to SVSU for adoption. At that point, they go to SVSU, it goes to all of the member districts, and all the districts needed to adopt the policy, and then it comes around back to SVSU for the final adoption of the policy, and it becomes the policy of the SVSU's school district. That's pretty short and straight.
Administrative regs.
Oh, and administrative regs. I mentioned that, I was going to cover that on the tracking sheet, but we got administrative regs are attached behind. Does this one have?
This doesn't have
This
any at the moment.
Doesn't have any at the moment attached to that. But we agreed that we would have the administrative regs follow on the site the policy, so that when you read this and you can say, well, what are they doing at the local level in terms of administrators, or if it's something that's not clear enough in the policy and all the different districts are having some issues with it, that's when we come in and say, this is what we meant here, and here's the administrative regs as to how this should be implemented with all the districts, and in terms that everybody can understand. Or if it's special needs in terms of BSD, having elementary level, at least Pownell, Shasberry, North Bennington, having to have something special for the little kids from K through 6, that administrative regs will speak specifically to that. If the middle school have something that needs to speak specifically to the middle school, and the high school will need to have the same thing speak to them, and then you'll see it all, a policy, administrative regs, and it'll break out the different levels of differentiation in terms of whether there's something that needed to speak to the various districts. Okay? That's policy 1000.
101.
101. Policy 1000. Moving along, then we had a motion and a second to on policy safety and security to accept it as and send it on to
For adoption.
for adoption to the boards. And so all in favor of
Can I ask a question before you? What was the change that you were talking about for today? Because healthy got put in there last time.
we didn't make
No.
any changes. It was done today.
Oh,
Right.
okay, I understood that there was
Yeah, there was no changes, and it went through the process, and they come back with no changes. What I was saying is, things that were asked will probably be in administrative regs. Can you post a sign that says something along that line? Can you give a lecture on something along this line? that kind of a thing will be administrative regs, not the policy. We're saying what it is that we want, and the implementation of it, depending on the level of elementary and middle and high school, we can make administrative regs to do that. Right?
It's an appropriate time to address punctuation.
Well, if you would like, bring.
Well, you know, there's a big difference between let's eat grandma and let's eat grandma.
Okay.
Page 2, line 2. Procedures for maintaining security, comma, including a building safety plan, comma, are developed and implemented. Thank you.
Okay. You made me think about one of the great things that we do. You'll all see, all of the policies has numbers down the side. It makes a difference when we're all trying to read and look at it and speak. And so Frank was able to take us right to page 2, line number, and say what needs to happen, and that's what we like to have.
Makes my job easier.
Makes it easy from having to read through the whole policy back and forth. So it's and so when someone have something that we needed to do along this line, it doesn't really change the intent of the policy out there. It made us look more professional if everyone agreed to that, and we would move on with that, with those additions there.
Can I ask that the administrative regulations be brought back so we can look at those? We don't have a say on them, but it makes a difference in how the policy, and what the policy speaks to, I guess is my question.
So what Dick is asking about is the administrative regs that will follow behind this, so that yes, when they're done and saying we're attached for information only, FYI, they would come back, because administrators are responsible for making sure that the language and interpreting the policy and meets objective for what we want to have, and then disseminate that with the policy connection so that we can make sure that everybody is adhering. If we find that, well, the administrative regs doesn't speak to BSD or Pownell or Shasberry or North Bennington, we say, well, that's not quite right. We want to make sure that that's for all of them, the middle school or the high school. So we see them and we can say to administrators that you need to make a change there. But basically, the policy is the board, the administrative regs is the administration. Okay? Hearing no other, seeing no other comments to do, we have it's been moved and second to have this particular policy move on to the boards for adoption. And all in favor? Okay. Any abstentions, opposed? Okay. Very good. Thank you. The next policy on here, and we seem to be doing pretty good with time. Public participation, 7,300. Public participation at board meetings. Now, in this particular policy, this policy had gone through we on line 14. The policy has went through all of in terms of where are we in the cycle.
We're just starting the discussion again.
We're reconsidering it.
We're reconsidering and having a discussion for that. That's for one.
Can
And
we
so,
just eliminate that line?
well, we heard
Starters?
from the public, and I looked at that, and I got the comments. It's nice to get this information ahead of time. It says the line that of a concern is the school boards. The prudent committee reserve the rights to eliminate public comments, agenda items when meeting or posting an executive session. Now, I will ask the other board members out here any comments that you may have. Dick has already stated, so why can't we just go ahead and eliminate it. Are there any other concerns with that as to why you would want to leave it in there or change it or have it some other kind of way?
What was the original thinking for
Yeah,
having that?
That if the board chose to meet for an executive session only, then I guess
It
it was
didn't.
assumed that
So
the
it's for
board
efficiency.
Yeah.
Well,
had no need for public comment because they were gonna be open to the public, but actually we're not following the Vermont open meeting law if we don't open for the public.
I don't know that we were doing it for efficiency. It's been there, and so we at a level now in the policies where things improve and everybody gets a clear understanding of things, that we say that some things may not be appropriate anymore. And so this is a case where we have a member of the public bring this to our attention, and it was a meeting that took place that this came up in and said that there's no executive session, no comment from the public. And I personally would like to say that I agree with Dick. I think this is something that we should eliminate, and we can do that here by making a strike through it if everybody do, and send it to all of the boards for their comments out there. Rob, and
I'm going to jump in and be devil's advocate
Okay.
for this, and then tell you that I agree with you. So the way that the way that it reads right now is that the boards reserve the right to eliminate public comment, and we'll just stop it there. If they don't have the right to begin with to eliminate public comment, they can't reserve the right. So that sentence means nothing in this policy. You could read it another way, saying that the boards reserve the right to just not have it as an agenda item, which is not required by law, but is required by policy later on. So what this could mean is that if you're gonna have a meeting that just has an executive session, you just have executive session as the agenda item. Public can still be there, they still have to have an opportunity to comment, but it just won't literally be an agenda item, which is the other way of reading that. Ultimately, I agree that it should just be taken out.
okay, I'll get to the members' board. Dave?
I was thinking that this along the same lines, but expressing that. So something like the school board's and prudential committee should allow public comment agenda items even when a meeting is posted as executive session only, so that that's up front, that's allowed. It's not left to interpretation.
So that's another way of looking at it, changing wording to tell everybody that we're gonna do it. It's been done.
I think part of it is that if the public is gonna comment on agenda items and it's only posted as an executive session, the public doesn't know what the executive session is for. So if they're gonna comment on the agenda, they don't have anything to say.
That's another way of
And
appointing.
some- there are some-
They won't know, that's another.
That's not true,
You
because
could
you have to
answer that.
list what it's in reference to.
We list it down and so forth along that line in terms of the citing to say that we're gonna have it right before that,
right.
in accordance with that. But we've been trying to make efforts to say that that it will be personnel or it will be contract. What brings things into executive session is that put the boards at a disadvantage to have them out into the public, or it creates an environment in which causes an unhealthy situation for probably lawsuit to the boards along that line. So when there are elements of that nature out there, then we use the word personnel, contract, disciplinary action along that line, and those are the only things that the individuals know in terms of what is supposed to happening, unless by word of mouth it goes some other way than what it is. I just stated it because you won't know what the personnel problem is in terms of what is to be discussed by the board. Now, hearing that, I still think myself, and I hear from somebody else, that we are on the right track of saying, hey, let's
Just take it out.
let's take it out and let the public come in, and if they wanna have the board chair allows the public comments to take place, and if they get to be excessive for whatever reason, and say, okay, thank you, and we end it, and we go on to executive session and move right on. So,
Would we ever, we would never have a meeting that wouldn't be open to the public, right?
we have meetings that, when I said executive session, the
Right.
meeting, all the meetings are held and start opening out an open session.
Right.
And at that point, we agree to go into executive session, discuss them.
Sure.
But that, and when we agree to go into executive session based on the citing VSA Title I, Section 313, we either use personnel, contract, or some other means of identifying what it is that we're gonna do without having to put the individuals at a disadvantage, put the board at a disadvantage. And so the comment was, what is the public commenting on? And I'm saying, well, somebody has said something to the public, what they think we may be discussing on the personnel, as to the reason a person may show up, because we haven't stated it.
Right.
And that's what Donna was addressing.
But don't need to eliminate that if the board chair wants to
Right.
have it.
And so I think it was Dave Berry had a good way of stating it
Well,
positive.
can we just take out agenda items and just leave it that we allow public comment?
We can do that, is that?
Well, the second part to that too, though, because it goes beyond the posted agenda items and says, and ideas of the public for future agenda items. So somebody could may make a public
Right.
comment that
Right.
they'd like to see the board, talk about busing or whatever.
And that would be great. I mean, and I hear you. So I think the modification is along that line. If you want to give Lisa, we said, how do you want to do that?
So what are we
again?
gonna do?
Oh, that's
We'll
right.
strike,
Okay.
Dave's suggestion fit in there pretty.
I thought we went, school boards and prudential committee should allow public comment even when a meeting is posted as executive session only.
okay.
It's not should.
Will.
Okay,
Will
well,
allow.
There are
Okay,
various
will is
legal
strong.
opinions on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that varies.
So if you
It's already
can
provided.
put that in there,
Go ahead.
Will
I-
allow.
We don't
Will
need that in the
allow.
policy, because that's what the law says.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
already provided for. I think putting it in the
Yep.
policy might not be a good idea.
okay.
'Cause
If we, and this
somebody's
is when
gonna
we think we
hate
got
the
some, we don't.
Somebody's gonna hate the wording.
Right,
Yeah,
take
if we
just
cut
take
it
it out.
out, we'll be.
So if we just take it out, then, I mean, there's being positive or proactive out here. And certain
Yeah.
sometimes we do things because they're in the news. And we want everybody to know the stance that we've taken, even though it's documented somewhere else. And that's why I was saying, okay, we can be proactive at it. But if the board, the committee thinks that we just need to take it out, it's gonna be good enough.
I think it's cleaner.
Okay, it'll be cleaner. So what happens, we'll do a strike through,
Done.
and that's done, and that's the way it'll show up. So when it goes out for adoption, everybody will see that was a correction made.
Should we vote on that? Should we have a motion?
Well, we'll vote on it
To
here.
the boards.
Yeah.
Yep, we're gonna vote, we'll go here, and I'm asking, we've had quite a bit of discussion as to which way we wanna do this. Take it out, modify it, and, if with the consensus is that everybody can agree that taking it out is sufficient enough, then we would just do just that. And if Summery has a,
I have a technical question.
okay, she has a technical question. Here's what we try to do and what we want to do is have all the board members, I mean, the regular members have all they
So
say,
you
and
tell
then
me
you
one
give me
I
a
can say.
technical. But then
That's okay.
we definitely, if it's technical, I would love to hear what it is because we want to get it right. And
So
so,
my question, a technical question is, at what point do you send this to your attorney? And at what point did that last one go to the attorney? Because it used to be that all of your policies go through Stitzel, Page, and Fletcher. I don't know if that's your policy now.
in policy 1000, there's a line in there that doesn't say that it had to go, but the board, Dick's got it right here. I'm trying to think of the right wording for that. But any time that we see that there is confrontational issues along the lines, we send them to our board attorney and to have them weigh in on those particular items.
The policy doesn't say that it will always go. It
Right.
says subsequently the document may be resubmitted for legal review if the drafting committee deems it necessary.
That's
And
right.
so
And so
I
at this
asked-
committee, if we deemed it necessary, we said, well, we're gonna send that to the legal group here again and have them agree with the decision that, and the format and how we're doing things.
Because you make a legal reference in this particular 7300 to VSA 310 to 313 of the open meeting laws.
Okay,
And, you know, you reference it to two other policies. So I guess as a citizen, I would strongly recommend that because of the various controversies over this, that you might consider sending it through.
so our legals for a review again. We would do that and I,
About that statement, it was sent to the lawyers.
it was.
Mhm.
It
In
was-
2015?
More recently, when it was questioned.
Okay.
Yeah, and so and then if we needed to bring that information, said, look, we send it to legal services, and this is what they came back. I think in the last month or so, we had something that we had come back from them, and we asked them to send the information for the committee members so we can see that, yep, this is their opinion. And this is how this want to be, so that we made
So did
sure
you
that.
get that information in your
Are
packet?
you talking about this committee?
Yes, last meeting, I think we had something with it. I'm trying to think of what we had. We had a legal opinion on some information that, a policy, a procedure, and we had it looked at and sent back to, and was sent to this board. I'm trying to get the way what it was. You have it?
I don't remember seeing any document that was legal advice
It
from
was,
them.
it was attached in the group, not, it was attached in, in Lisa's group, so that when someone asked, had we sent, you had the email posted, I think, in there to say that.
I think it had to do with the safety and security as far as,
Oh,
about specifically, being specific in there about situations.
right, it wasn't this policy, it was 4400. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, right, there was the
It was-
discussion that,
Yeah, it was
Right.
4400 that had
General.
some specifically that we
Yeah.
sent and came back on it. Thank you, because I knew we did something out there. Using that as an example that if this committee says, let's send it to legal, we'll have the comments come back from them, and we'll have them available on the site to say that this is the results of the review of changes to the policy if necessary. Okay? So now, I don't know where I am here with,
There was another question.
it was another
Sean
question.
already had about the same thing.
Right. It was at the end, and I'll tell you, we went through this. And the second part that comes up, and that was at the very end of this policy, this board recommended, and we did this in a reasonable, this is line 13. timely manner with respect to the district and supervisor union administrators in a timely manner. And this is something that everybody's trying to define. What is a timely manner? Along that line, we had this discussion out here. Members from the public are, on the public comment, has a right to ask for something to be done, or a clear understanding of something to be done. And we felt that, yes, we hear you, and we needed to put that in the contents or within in the schedule of the duties of our administrators to get back in a timely manner, as opposed to saying that I'm going to make sure that I can get it back next month or I can next week, because we needed to go out and look at and study what it is that's being asked and make sure that it is not forgotten but responded to in a timely manner in terms of the schedule. Using an example here, the agenda for next month had something come up here and says, in which maybe 2600 or something come up, and we're saying, okay, we need to get that on the agenda, what it is, and then depending on the nature of what it is that someone is asking us to do we need to go out and do research on that? We may ask that everybody go out on the site somewhere, websites, let's go to the school board and so forth, let's go somewhere and pull the information up to come back and be able to respond to that. Now, what's wrong with that is we can't get that done because, as an example, we may not have a meeting, just like we didn't have one previous to this. And so therefore, to the individuals that are asking for that, that may not be timely enough for them, but it's timely enough for us to be able to plan and do the research and schedule it, which could take a month or 2 months or 3 months to get on the agenda. And that's what timeliness means in a timely manner. Now, I heard earlier that somewhere someone else has been trying to define timely manner. I don't know how you can define it in any other way than what I just described and put undue restraints on this committee and the administrators in this district to be able to go out and do something. And it may be something that's simple, we can manage that. It may be something that's huge, that require a lot. And so I don't know whether the board has any other comments or what you think you ought to have a change there. Rob, you get?
Actually, I have a question for Sean Marie to kind of, what is the controversy with that particular section?
It actually isn't controversy. It's just, I'm trying to find it online, that when they updated the open meeting laws, they actually specified timely responses. And when I find it, I can email it to you guys.
Okay. So
Does it give us a specific
wait a minute,
time?
Angie. So what I wanted to say here, and I think that's what she was saying here, is that earlier that they had somebody that was just discussing timely, and I was trying to make sure that we discuss timely manner as how it affects this district. And so we needed to be able to understand that if they use the word timely in whatever document, we'll look at that. And we can still bring that back here once we find that citing or so forth along that line and determine whether we need to make a change to that. But how we planned it, and the reason we chose it that way is for the very reason I described earlier. I don't feel right that I put a burden on Sandy just because somebody asked for it, when I know she's got her hands full and she can't get to this for 2 or 3 months down the road if it's something specifically for that. And I'm saying that's timely to me. And that's how this board discussed that and implemented that and added that to that line. I think that was a North Bennington add-on.
Well, it's
It's-
one more
Marie.
thing from North Bennington. I'm having trouble parsing this at all. As far as I can tell, it says,
I think there was
answers shall be deferred in a timely manner. And that doesn't make sense to me at all.
Okay. The question, I'd say.
I'm not, I mean, I think what you wanted to say was provided. But I'm really,
Shall be deferred from that meeting and then provided later in the time.
Right, that's what we want to do is,
Right.
yes.
Yeah, but
Okay,
Well, no, what it
but it
says,
never
excuse me.
says that, it
Where?
just says deferred.
let's, that, Marie, yeah, she's gonna deferred pending consideration by the full board of the Prudential Committee. Okay, so,
Added in the time.
This is where the
I
comma
think you
comes
just kind of
in.
stuck it in a timely manner on there with very good intentions, but I don't think it says what you think it says.
okay, well, this is why we're having this discussion.
we need
The Frank,
What-
think he said he
Right,
had
well,
a
what
comma.
it's supposed to say is shall be deferred, comma, pending consideration by the full board, which implies that it's gonna be deferred until the full board meets the next time, a
Right.
month away. That's what it implies.
Right.
And that makes it be, in many people's eyes, not very timely. I absolutely agree we should address this. I just don't know the best way to do it.
I just think in a timely manner actually doesn't refer to
Yeah, I
anything.
totally agree with
It
Maria.
doesn't refer to
You need
anything.
something that says shall, okay, so they're being
Yeah.
deferred.
And be worked on in a time, or whatever, I mean,
Yeah,
then
and
you get into
resolved
the
in a timely
problem
manner.
with
Okay,
timely
well,
manner.
we can do that right here now. If you wanted saying in terms of that, we can wordsmith that
'Cause we
right
need-
now. Frank added a comma to it,
You
and
need
if
to add
you,
an S to school board too.
so,
Because you did it everywhere else in the, in the document, but this one just has
You're gonna
one
drive
school board.
yourself
The
into
timely
chaos.
manner phrase doesn't apply to
Well, hey.
consideration.
Keep losing my mouse.
That's the way I read
I
it.
only read this one.
so the timely manner doesn't comply with consideration. Is that Dick is saying?
I'm thinking that a timely manner applies to the consideration. But
While you're considering the wording of this, I'm gonna throw out something where we don't actually have to give an answer under the law.
Okay.
We have to respond to an open meeting law complaint in a timely manner. I think that's what Sean Marie is talking about.
Right,
We don't actually have to give an
And
answer to a
And a
comment.
FOIA
Right, and a
request
FOIA
is now
request,
within a timeline.
right,
So
but I'm
you could
just saying
take
that
it
that's,
out,
what,
and then it would make sense.
well, it's still, if you take it out, and
Mhm.
here's what we had the discussion on, I'm just trying to remember back when we had this
Okay.
discussion, when we put this in here, everybody want it now. And we can give it, we could not provide the information right now because we were getting so many of those things and we're saying we would get back.
But that's why it says deferred.
And so deferred
That's
pending
why
consideration of the school
I'm saying
board
you need to consider.
and the Prudential Committee and respective districts or supervisory union administrators.
Period.
Now, period. Okay, the heat of the day
Mhm.
at the time was, I want to know when you're going to get this. And I believe if we go back and look at some of those minutes, well, last month, and this is a new month, you should have gotten that done. Wait a minute now. Before this, we're saying what we need to do in terms of that. And to clear that up, we were saying to them that we hear you, we have it, we're working on it, and as soon as we can get through with that, that would be timely, in a timely manner, get it back.
That's fine,
And so-
but I
So,
think you need a
Amy-
period at the end of administrators and say,
Or you-
the issues will be resolved in a timely manner.
Pending
or some-
consideration in a timely manner by the full school boards
And,
or prudential committee and respective blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's
period.
just,
Okay.
it's
After
just not
administrative.
clear what in a timely manner refers to, because you
Yeah.
can't defer I mean, you can defer something in a timely manner, but in a timely manner right now is
Not referring.
referring to the deferring,
Okay.
not to a
can
resolution.
you say
So-
pending
So just-
timely consideration?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, well, let's,
Perfect.
Because you
I think if
can't
you add
put
two words-
resolved or you're
Okay.
at home.
I think if you have two
So-
words, you might get it. If you put-
okay,
put
will he,
on line 13, and addressed in a timely manner.
Well,
Oh, still.
Because you
well,
got
we-
deferred and addressed, those are two separate actions. The deferred goes with pending consideration, and if you put and addressed in a timely manner, that gets the other part of it.
So we'll
address
have
sounds a
a
little bit more,
and.
Well, we said we may not have an answer, so. it might not be
This
candidates.
is my English teacher, so
I
I'm
know,
I'm
that's
going,
why,
I'm going.
that's why I would have
The
it refer
address,
to
we just keep telling you we don't have an
consideration.
answer.
That's
This
why
is
I
the
would have it
grammar
refer to
committee.
I
consideration.
know.
It is.
Okay, I like it.
So-
Yeah, I'm gonna put
So-
that in, just wait a
So
minute.
we'll put it in and see what it looked like.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, I need to get my fingers in the right place.
It still have a comma, and so with a comma would be there and and addressed in a timely manner. What is that?
I think it should be
Yeah, I
pending
know.
timely
I know.
consideration. But now I'm gonna shut
I think
What?
the fewer words you
Yes,
got in there, the
exactly.
better off
up.
you are.
Fewer words.
Well,
I agree. I like pending timely consideration because I think it speaks to Dick's point about you don't want to say and addressed or and resolved.
Right.
that's true, yeah. And
So-
so what are we saying then, that we need to not? I mean, I'm just saying this is,
So pending timely
Period.
consideration
Period.
and then
Administrator.
administrators period.
so where you wanna do that, Amy? Let's see here.
Line 12,
Line
pending
12.
timely consideration.
Where's our mouse?
Pending timely consideration.
Mhm.
Oh, behind pending, right here on channel, I'm not channel 12. Line 12.
Pending timely consideration. And then you would get rid of the last and addressed in a timely manner. That's an alternative.
Okay, I mean, we can,
That's it.
how about it? Everybody can agree with that?
Administrators, period,
Mhm.
and
Administrators,
then dump the rest.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
okay, so we'll do a period, strike through, we'll take out the,
let me take this out.
and addressed in a timely manner, and then strike through the timely manner, because we want the people to see what we changed.
There's Frank's extra comma, even if we.
There it is, floating around on the floating column.
Save it.
It's really easy.
We'll save
I always
it.
have a spare deck.
That's underline, strike, okay, we got it. So, I just want you to know, this is good, healthy stuff. But, and trying to get it right, and so if it gets to be something else, and so everybody should know now enough to be able to take it back to their own board and talk about what we're on. Thank you for
Thank you.
coming, for doing that. Okay, so, are there any other things that need to happen to this policy before we send it on to the next round?
There are some typos throughout it, but I don't think we have to address them.
Okay, well,
Whoever can
if
just
we find typos,
review it.
we fix it
We're gonna
and so
do
forth along
commas,
that line.
typo.
Well, that was substantive. It was,
Yeah.
Dave's idea was going to make us required to answer it, and this just kind of changes it to mean what I think
Yeah.
it said it would mean. But I'm still
Okay.
my English teacher, I would have gone with that.
Okay, well, this is good. So with barring that, we know that there may be grammatical and whatever, commas and whatever that we may have missed, and as we find them, I know that we'll just get it and take care of it. Okay, so 7,300 is all set, then to move on to this next phase.
Yeah, it'll be
Okay. going
out for warning.
Okay, going out for one. We have, for one, did I?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. We have about 17 minutes left that we have to get done out here in terms of that. So, okay, that's right. 7,300 is going out for one. I got to look at it. So we'll look at the tracking sheet is next. If everyone in terms of a nod, a wave that says we're moving on, and that's all we need here because the whole board will be able to look at it. So our tracking sheet is set up to give us an indication of where we are with the boards, with the member districts. And list the policy, whether it's required by state law, administrative regs, and then we have the districts that when the policy went to that particular district for action, and whether it was approved or not approved, and if they sent back some comments, we try to make sure we gather and capture those so that we can come back here and have a discussion for that. So as of right now, the only question that I think Marie asked about 2,600.
Yeah, we adopted it, but we just had a question about the evaluation instrument. I know I missed the meeting previous, but 2 meetings ago, we discussed that it might change, and I just was wondering if it was changing or if it was the one that is online. I just want to be able to bring it back to my board.
What, okay, I think I got, what we wanted, what we did, the main course of this was to make sure that the boards were responsible for documenting the timeline for the evaluation of the superintendent. Being lacking, we said that by August, we said at first, and then someone said, no, what if we don't meet in August? Well, we said by the end of September, the board will meet to discuss and plan the process by which it would be the dates, and it needs to be followed for the evaluation of the superintendent using the school board information in terms of for administrators, using some other instruments, using goals. But what happens, the board needs to set that instrument in place by September and say that, okay, in December we're going to have this done, or February we have this done, by May we'll have certain thing done for the superintendent, depending again on the contract date as well in there. Dick?
But the tools that we use, I'm on that committee.
Yeah.
And so we use the one tool that's included
posted on
there.
Okay.
But the state has standards, and we go to that format also. And out of this whole mess, you come up with an evaluation that complies with the state evaluation standards. I'm not sure what that.
There are
there's a term for it.
administrative standards.
There are administrative standards for that, and so we wanted to make sure that they didn't leave that out. And so,
Yeah, so this is one tool, and then where would I be able, can I point my board to what you were just talking about? That's the
the
state.
administrative standards?
Yeah,
I can send you a copy of
That would be
a
great.
blank if that helps.
Sure.
If you,
sure.
Now, who's on there from North Bennington? No, is it on that committee for evaluation of superintendent? Is it?
Is it right?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
It's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell Ray to muster up.
Yeah.
I'm on camera though. I know I'm in trouble now. So,
Thank you.
all right. Okay, so that takes care of the tracking sheet. What happens next is that we would, under others, we and we did 2,600 on the others. If there are policies that needed to be addressed, if we heard them today and we wanted to keep them in mind and not lose them, we can put them down on the others. But at this time, we have about 12 minutes left. We can hear whether we have something else that needs to be added on in terms of others. Dick has his hand.
Off the VSBA website, there was a
Yeah, that's right.
policy that's listed as required up in their corner anyway. They're calling it C11 as a model policy, student freedom of expression in school-sponsored media. And if it's required, I'm sure we got to take a look at that.
Yeah, thanks. I read it and I said yes, and I don't don't know where it is, but thank you. We'll have that, that's one that we need to put on and have down for next school board meeting, because they're saying it's an expression for students and so forth along that line, and it's gonna be required, and
What was
they
the
send
state
that, they send
number,
it to,
Dick?
What?
What was the state number?
C11.
Okay.
say, they send it to all the school board members that did, that's how I got it. It was.
And there's a legal reference to 16 VSA 1623, so I don't know what it says in there. but-
Okay.
Normally,
Alrighty.
well, in addition to sending them to the school board members, they should be sending them to the administrators so that we make sure that we get them. And somewhere, something is not happening.
What, in what? Oh, about getting the model or getting
The new
that-
ones that they
Oh,
come
yeah,
up
right.
with, because they work on some, and they said, we wanna send this out, and you may not get it, but the
No.
board gets it. And so, and that's not good. The procedure before was that they go to the administrators, and the administrator was a liaison with the board and says, these are required, or these are policies that are being worked on, and we needed to have the board look at those. And so they're going around it for some reason, or somebody's done something.
So who did it come from, the VSBA?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, yeah, so they wouldn't necessarily send it to me.
If you want, I can work that into a format that we use, something, and get it to Lisa
That'd be
or
great.
something. and
So-
she can-
So did you look on their website? Sometimes they have a model that.
Yeah,
That's what
That
it
is
says,
a model?
yeah, yeah. And
Well,
so,
that's,
Usually we just,
I just plug
Use
our
the
header
model.
and stuff in, and then
Well,
we go from there.
If you want to work with that, then I'm happy.
okay, so, but that was a good example of what somebody may volunteer, said, let me take that and work on it. But in this case, I read the whole thing, and I don't know that it's anything that we really need to play around with, is just besides putting it in our format and having everybody read it, and we'll move on from that. But if there are others that somebody say, and I do have some that will become, at the high school, we need to be changing the grading system process. And so we're gonna have things that need to work on their graduation requirement in terms of the new changes out there. I don't know why I have policy 5089 on, I made a note for some reason, 5089, but I didn't put anything down about it.
Never mind.
you have,
What was that
No.
one for me? What was?
5089.
Hang on.
I know why.
Why did I do that, Dick?
I was the guy that
Oh,
wanted
that's
a
right.
motion.
You made a
at
That's
the
right, that's right. Oh.
SVSU meeting regarding arming teachers and regarding not arming teachers. And 5089 is weapons prohibition other than students.
Okay, so thanks. I wrote it down, but I didn't say why. So that's another one that we'll be looking at, and we're starting to create our agenda for next month out there for these things. The ones that I mentioned about the high school, they're not ready yet for this committee, and that the high school will be working on some of that with the board and trying to define the graduation requirement, how we want to grading, what the new grading method of being able to show that to the parents, whether they're going to have a dual system or not. All those kind of things will be worked out with part of the board, and mindfully that even though they're Mount Anthony, all of the district has to be able to understand them and agree to having that work in a certain way. But the groundwork is just done starting out at Mount Anthony, because it's the most close, you're the closest with it, with that particular item in terms of the students, and should be a leader in that. Okay, so under that, so next month, probably what we'll be doing is looking at required policies, what we do, and pick some that had not been reviewed in a while, and then put them on the list to do, and move right on. So, I think I've covered everything, member responsibility. Is there anything else that we needed to discuss on the others that we have not discussed that need to happen within 6 minutes? Donna?
I would just have a question about Dick's statement that you wanted to, would that be like a administrative break? Or I don't know quite how we would make that statement. They said send it back to the policy committee. We're not
Yeah.
gonna make it part of the policy.
Which I don't think is the place it belongs.
No.
I simply wanted to make a public statement on behalf of the SVSU and
Yeah,
member
right.
school boards.
So-
And that's it.
I think what they wanted though was for it to go to every board, to have every board adopt that.
Well,
And that the SU couldn't do it on their own.
The way I
Right.
stated it was I
isolation.
added and its member districts in there rather than just stating SVSU.
Right.
Which probably doesn't change anything, because if you say SVSU, everybody has to agree to that anyway. And I don't know that everybody does. I just,
Well, that's all I'm asking then,
So-
is kind of what is the process to move this forward for you? Would it go to every board?
I
As a-
was going to
as
get
an
it to
item?
Karen, which was Jim's suggestion, and then Karen would float it out to the boards and they could do what they want.
And
At
if that,
that meetings, and if they don't like it, then we hear about it.
right, and if they do, and if there's some action to be taken against that, then it'll come back here for us. So I think the thing, you throwed out the 5089, we are concerned, and you wanted to have all of the different districts look at it and agree, disagree with a statement that you're going
It
to
doesn't
provide.
change
Yeah, not the
any of,
policy.
it
Not the
doesn't
policy.
change
No.
any of the policy.
So I think it really, that's all I guess I'm trying to get to. I think it's sort of independent of the policy, and that it should be moving forward to keep it going independently of any policy. It should be brought up to each board, kind of on it's your statement, and you're asking the boards to adopt it, each board. So it has to go on every agenda, but it's not a policy.
Not a
It's
policy.
not coming
And the
out of
policy
this
doesn't have to
committee.
be changed?
No,
No.
no,
Oh, right.
no.
No.
So,
Okay.
I mean, this is,
I heard your
Just me.
statement.
Yep.
It's great,
Well,
but
thank you.
I just think it needs to go forward and not be
Yes.
stuck in this committee.
Right. Okay, was there anything else? I just wanna, as always, thank you for a fun day. And we'll move on to, May 7th is our next scheduled, meeting. Thank you.
thanks.